Hey, Bethany, I am so excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Carrie. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to chat today.
Yay. Well, I'm, as I was telling you before, a massive fan of your business, and I've been using your skincare products for years. And I know with my programs and my courses, I'm always like using Primally Pure as examples for standout marketing, whether it's like your blog posts or your beautiful websites or your product descriptions. I think you've done such a phenomenal job with building a brand that has such great marketing. So I'm just really excited to be sitting here with you, and I appreciate your time. Before we dive into everything, if you wanted to share, introduce yourself, your name, and what your business is.
Yeah, I'd love to. So my company is Primally Pure. I started Primally Pure in my kitchen, almost 10 years ago. We've been in business 8 years officially, but I was working on formulas for a while before launching the business. Started it in my kitchen and started selling my products on my family farm's website. My family has a farm, a regenerative, beyond organic livestock farm here in Southern California. It's called Primal Pastures. So initially I kind of saw what I was doing as a complement to the farm's brand, which was a little further along than I was at the time. And that was kind of what I set out to do, was just to sell these natural products that I was creating on the farm's website at farm tours and things like that. And then I was really blown away when I started selling these products by the response I was getting and the demand. And so that just led to me being more excited about what I was creating and wanting to get it into more hands, here in the US and around the world. And it's grown a ton since then. We now have a team of about 50 people at our headquarters in Southern California. We do all the manufacturing, all the shipping in-house here. And, we have a spa at our headquarters as well, which has been a really fun addition to the brand. But yeah, that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
That's amazing. I would love to just ask you a couple questions about the start of that, because I know that you said this was sort of like inspired in a sense from your family farm. What made you what made you say, okay, I know that, some of your hero products are like your natural deodorant, and I know you sell a lot of you sell hair products. Your skin stuff is what I buy, and I'm just obsessed with. Your soothing cream is like the best skincare product I've ever used in my whole life. I love it. But
I love it.
What made you just start, I know that you said you were inspired from your farm and you wanted to create things that complemented that, but what was your why behind making some of your first products?
Yeah. So growing up, starting in high school, continuing into college, I struggled with acne, and like a lot of teenagers, I was really self-conscious about it at the time, and I just wanted it to go away. So I remember my mom taking me to the dermatologist. I went to the dermatologist a lot for a couple of years, and she was putting me on antibiotics and really harsh creams and just a whole gamut of different things. And I felt like sometimes something would work for a little bit, but then it would stop working, or it would work, but then, my skin would get really red and irritated and start peeling off. And I just felt like there had to be a deeper solution to this that everyone was missing, but I didn't have the means to research that and figure that out at the time. And so it wasn't until later on in life, when my husband and his family started this farm, that my eyes were kind of open to a new way of eating and caring for my body. And so I changed my diet, started to feel really good. I didn't have any major health issues per se, but my energy levels improved, felt like my immune system was working better, things like that I noticed immediately. And then I also noticed that my skin started to clear up. And that's when a light bulb went off in my head. And I thought, gosh, if I've been wrong about the foods that I've been eating my whole life, Like what else am I wrong about? What else can I improve? And so I looked at the skincare products I was using and I was pretty surprised to find that a lot of the products I had been using my whole life actually contained ingredients that are known to cause cancer or known to irritate the skin, things like this. I think I felt, and I know a lot of people also have felt this way, that if something is being sold at a store, that it's been vetted and, tested for safety and all of these things. And in reality, that just isn't the case for the majority of ingredients that are allowed in the products that are sold in stores today. And so once I was kind of like realizing all of these things, I just set out to create my own skincare products, just kind of intending them to be for myself to use, and maybe some family members. Didn't really have like a business vision in mind at the time. That came later, but I just I wanted to create products for myself, for my husband, family, friends, and that's what I started doing initially. And it's hundreds of iterations of different products later, I then launched an actual business.
And what did that look like? Because I can imagine, and I've obviously like read your website and read about the story, but just for people that haven't read that, it's very interesting. Like, what did that look like for you? Were you like literally sitting there in your kitchen making, like concocting your deodorants and your face, lotions and all that kind of stuff? Did you hire out chemists to do that for you? Like tell us like a little bit about the early days. Because I think a lot of times with businesses, we hear the success stories and we hear like, okay, Primally Pure, you're an overnight success, but you've been at this for a decade, and a lot of times people will look at the result today and not backtrack to those early days of like, okay, this person has hustled for many years to get this to where it is today. But so I love personally hearing the early days, the scrappy, like all the, things you're probably doing in your house to sell your first product, but walk us through what that kind of looked like for you.
Yeah. It was super DIY in the beginning. And I'll give some examples just to show people like how, I don't know how else to describe it, but how like DIY it was. I always say there's that business saying, like work smarter, not harder. I was working harder, not smarter for a really long time because I didn't have the business smarts and the business sense. All I could do was what I knew how to do at the time. And that's what I did. So like for shipping packages, for instance, I was handwriting, addresses on boxes. I was driving around to coffee shops and hair salons, picking up old magazines and newspapers, shredding them in a Costco shredder that I had bought, and then using that to stuff packages with. I was making batches of deodorant in like 4 deodorants at a time. There's so many examples of just like these these things that I was doing because I didn't know how to work shipping, like a shipping software at the time. And I didn't have Primally Pure didn't start with any investments. I didn't have like funding or anything like that. So everything was really scrappy. I was working really long days. This is another side story, but when my husband and his family started the farm, he's one of 5, and a lot of his siblings had a part in it and moved back to his parents' house where they all grew up, and their house was on 2 acres. And so that's where the farm started. But we were like one of the families that moved back to get the farm off the ground. So we were living in this 1,700 square foot house with 9 other people using the same bathroom. Like it was, had like Primally Pure Primal Pastures was really getting started. I was kind of experimenting with my formulas in the kitchen. And it was just like, it was a lot for a couple of years. And then we moved to a house that was Primal Pastures got a new farm property, and we moved into a small farmhouse on that property. And that was when Primally Pure started to take off. But even at that time, I was hand cutting labels for our products with like a $7 paper cutter that I got from Hobby Lobby. And like I had shipping in like one bedroom. Obviously I was making the products in the kitchen. I would sit on the couch and like label products on the kitchen table. I would set up my computer and answer customer emails and reach out to influencers. So it was like all these different components of the business and all these different jobs I was doing.
Yeah.
Different areas of our home. And it was like that for a long time. I was working really long days, oftentimes staying up until like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, just because that is what it took to get the business going until I could afford to hire anyone to help me. And I think it was about almost a year in that I hired my first part-time employee. And I just had a couple of different part-time employees for that following year. And I think at about 2 years in is when I hired someone full-time. And that was only because I had to, because I had just had a baby.
Yeah. Okay. That's amazing. And like all these things are also funny because I'm thinking back to my early days of when I started my first. So I started a business called the Dapper Dog Box in Irvine in California. My kid was 6 months old at the time. And, you know, because that's what people do when they have a child. They're like, I'm going to start a business because that makes sense. But like, I remember shipping out my first order and it was a friend had ordered it. So it wasn't like through my website. It was just like she paid me through Venmo. And I basically took this package. So it was a pet brand. So I would ship like boxes of pet things. And I took the box and basically I probably used half a roll of tape. Like I taped the crap out of that thing. It was literally covered in tape and I sent it because I didn't know, I had no concept of shipping a product. I didn't know how much tape to use. Is it going to open up when it gets shipped? So she messaged me and I remember being really insulted when she messaged me, but in hindsight, she was just trying to give me constructive feedback, but she was like, I feel like you just used way too much tape and maybe don't use so much tape. But just like, you know, we all make those mistakes when we're first starting off and we don't know what we don't know. So I love that you were like this makes me laugh so much. You went to the different shops and like took magazines and then shredded that up to use as like the stuffing in the boxes. That is so funny. I love it, but it's like, you have to be scrappy. You gotta like, you're doing all the things. And I love that. And it's really funny to hear this early days of your business. Cause like now if you go to your website, you can see your website is so beautiful. You have all these influencers promoting you. Like you've done so many things right. But when you started off, you know, just like everyone else listening here, you don't know what you don't know. You're going to make mistakes and all that kind of stuff. So what would you say is like, do you have any like big mistakes that glare out at you from your early days of like, that almost screwed my whole business up, or like I just wasted $5,000. What is like a huge mistake that you made in the early days, if you can think of any?
Gosh. I mean, there have been so many, and I remember in the beginning, every time something bad would happen, whether it was my mistake or just something out of my control, I would think like, oh my gosh, it's over. Like, we're done. There's no way. There's no path forward from here. Better just, you know, throw in the towel. And then like, once I got over that, I would kind of problem solve. And there's almost always like a fix for whatever is going on. But it feels so daunting in the moment. And I've learned that like being an entrepreneur is navigating challenges, like so many ups and downs. It's not a smooth ride. It never will be. And once I came to terms with that and just learned to expect hurdles and challenges, you know, once new things came up, it was just kind of like, okay, you know, we've gotten through this and this and this in the past, and this is going to be no different. And what can we do? And the mindset shift was big for me. But gosh, in the beginning, there's a couple that come to mind. One time we made a batch of deodorant, and this was when we had just kind of started scaling up in batches. We had just moved into our first warehouse manufacturing space. And I think we were making maybe one batch of deodorant, I want to say was like made 200 or so deodorants. So that was big for us to be making, you know, a batch of deodorant that made 200 deodorants. That was a lot of money. for
Mhm.
Primally Pure at the time. And our skincare chefs, as we call them, they made this batch of deodorant, and one of them comes up to me and she's like, "Hey, this deodorant smells really weird. Like, we don't know why, but it smells off." So I took a whiff. It definitely smelled weird, and started smelling like each individual ingredient that went into the deodorant. Got to the arrowroot powder, and it smelled really strongly of cumin, which is a strong smelling
Oh,
Indian spice. It's kind of known for smelling like body odor.
I hate that smell.
Yeah, so it's not something you want in your deodorant. The arrowroot powder smelled like cumin. We had just made a whole batch of deodorant with it. All the deodorants smelled like BO.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was terrible. And so we contacted the supplier, and they told us that they had stored the arrowroot powder next to a bunch of cumin. And
Oh no.
yeah, they didn't reimburse us or anything. So we just had to eat that cost, which was huge for us at the time.
Yeah.
One time also, when we had just started outsourcing our deodorant tubes, not the deodorant itself, but the deodorant tubes, to a manufacturer overseas.
Mhm.
It was when we switched from like one type of tube to another. And it was our first experience with ordering anything overseas. And it was taking a lot longer than we expected, but our supplier kept reassuring us like we had a certain date that we needed them by. And he kept reassuring us, like, "You'll have them, don't worry." And so we ended up, this was around the time of Black Friday. Gosh, it was probably 5 years ago now, or 6 years ago. It's around the time of Black Friday, which is always a big sales day, sales weekend for us. And we ended up launching these new deodorant tubes when we didn't actually have them in our possession. But we, at the time, were confident that they would be arriving any day, and that we could, make the deodorant, fill the tubes, and get them all shipped out in time. And so that didn't happen. They didn't arrive for another 2 weeks. And we had to send out emails to our customers apologizing and letting them know, like, "Hey, if you want to cancel your order, you can. But if you want to keep it, like, we'll fill it and ship it to you as soon as possible." And we had, thousands and thousands of orders piled up. We had a very small team at the time. And we were shipping out orders that didn't have deodorant, but any order that had deodorant was like delayed. And then finally, when the deodorant tubes arrived, it was this whole big truck, and the whole team was, getting in and out of this semi truck, like getting these boxes into our warehouse. We made all these batches immediately, filled the tubes, and it took us a couple of weeks to ship everything out, but we did get all the orders out before Christmas, which we were happy about. But, there's so much room for problems when you own a company. And I think I was very naive to that, and couldn't foresee those potential areas where we would make mistakes in the beginning.
Yeah. Oh my God. I also feel like with the holidays and Christmas, every business has that story of the product doesn't show up in time, and then customers start emailing you, and it's so challenging. That happened to me one year with one of the things I did was manufacture these really super trendy dog bandanas, and I needed them by a certain date, and there was some ice storm in the Midwest, and it wasn't like they were stuck in overseas or anything, but there was some ice storm, and they got held up for I think a week or two, and it just screwed up my entire holiday season. Because it's not just that you don't have the product in time, but then it's dealing with the customers. The customers get super angry. You have to spend so much time into customer service, emails, and sort of mitigating all those things. And it's such a nightmare, but hopefully everything worked out for you. But that is, I think the arrowroot and cumin is, it's kind of funny, and not in a funny way, but it's ironic because you said the deodorant smelled like BO, which that's exactly what deodorant helps to not
Right. Right. Like it
Kind
couldn't
of
have been
ironic.
any spice. It had to be like the worst smelling spice that you could ever put in a deodorant.
Oh my God, that's so funny. And also just be curious because I know that, I also mentioned this before, but like, I feel like, your brand is a brand that, like, at least from the outside, I would view as like a brand that is sort of like a cult brand. Like people are just obsessed with it. I know I definitely am. I think your products are so good and like the marketing is so good, but I'm just curious, what do you think that you've done to create this brand that people just like really wildly obsess over? I mean, it's not just me. I've seen so many people online over the years, talking about, either the deodorant or your dry shampoo or the skincare products. What do you think it is about your stuff that people just kind of go crazy for?
Man, that's a really
That might
good
be like
question.
a loaded question because I feel like it's not just one thing, but just from like your perspective, I don't know. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are probably several things, but
Mhm.
one thing that comes to mind is that I feel like so many brands these days, you go on their website, you go on their social media, and it almost feels like this robotic experience. Like, who's behind
Mhm.
this brand? What is this brand all about? Like, they're selling all these products, but like, there's no life to
Mhm.
there's no life to it. And I think one thing that we have always sought to do is just to kind of come alongside people in their wellness journey, not just with skincare products, but with what kind of foods they're eating, what type of lifestyle are you living? Because skincare is so multifaceted. And when I started the company, I that was very much at the forefront of my thinking because I had had this experience with changing my diet and saw improvements in my skin. And I never
Mhm.
wanted to just push products without giving people, as best as I could, this bigger picture of health and health in general and also skin health. And so that's what we've done, like with our blog, with our social media. It's not just product. It's
Mhm.
it's the bigger picture. It's a holistic picture of taking care of your skin from everything from, yes, of course, the products, that's a big part of it, but also diet, things like prioritizing sleep and lowering stress levels and things like that. It all plays into it. And I think we've always just really tried to reinforce that with customers. And I think that has gone a long ways and built a lot of trust with people. Um,
Mhm.
we also do put a lot of care into the products we create. So I'm kind of, that's something that I take really seriously. And I formulated a lot of our products in the beginning, still have a really big part in the formulation process. We now work with a lot of different people for the different products that we create and launch. But, we're not just going to put a product out there and hope people like it. It's a big process and it has to be just right before we launch anything.
Mhm. I love that. And I love what you said. The first thing they were talking about of the people will have a brand and they have this website. And it's like, I like to always say that human faces, personality, your story, sharing like the founder, their story humanizes a brand and it makes you different than like an Amazon. You know what I mean? So I love that you just talked about the robotic experience and how you wanted to kind of have like life in yours and things like that. So I couldn't agree more. I think that's such an important thing. And I think, like, at least for me, I think a lot of brands don't succeed because of that exact thing. You go to the website and it's just product. It's just product. There's no like personality. There's no story. And I think with a website like that, you might as well just be an Amazon page because that's what an Amazon experience is. It's just a page with product. There's no, people don't care about the person behind it. They don't really care about like the brand story or any of that stuff. So yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. And then I just have like another question because I feel like one of the things that Primally Pure does really well is you seem very clear on like who you are targeting, the non-toxic lifestyle person, that kind of thing. Did you always have that clarity from the beginning, or is that something that has evolved as your brand has grown in terms of like who you're targeting and kind of like what your messaging is all about?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I would say starting out, I was my target customer. And so I kind of built Primally Pure around like what type of products would I use? What type of products would my friend group use and my family members that are close to me? And just kind of, used those benchmarks to determine like what types of products to create and how to talk about them, what to educate on, things like that. Now, I mean, we are a lot more in the weeds with, data based on the advertisements that we do and things like that. And that's something that thankfully I'm not like super involved in anymore. But yeah, definitely in the beginning, like I was basing everything off of like what do I want in a company? What do I want in a product? What can I see the people who are close to me wanting? What are like our customers asking? What kind of questions are our customers asking? That's always been huge. Like customer feedback is something we've always taken really seriously and still do. And every month our customer experience manager sends a report, like the top questions, like, 40 people asked about this, 25 people asked about this, and whether it's like a product, sometimes things like that have led to us making tweaks in our product line. Sometimes questions lead to us talking about a certain topic in a blog post so that, if enough people are asking about something, obviously it's something that people want more information on. And a blog post, a lot of times, is a great way to provide that, because then when we're answering questions, we can just, link to the post that we share all about and the answer to that question. So, yeah, I think it's a mix of just kind of like where my passions have led me personally and customer feedback, and then like clicks and data from our paid advertisements.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's so cool that you've kind of had that transformation from the early days of, again, like maybe less data focused things, but still great feedback from, customers and like listening to what they're complaining about and asking for. And then, becoming more sophisticated with like marketing efforts and being able to like look at data and numbers and analytics and all that. So I think that's really cool. And then maybe just one more question. And this is more of like what I'm just curious of. What has been like your favorite moment since you've started your business? If there's like one moment that stands out, that's just like, maybe it was your first sale or it was like when I think everyone that has a business has a moment where they're like, okay, this is like, I feel my business has success as of right this second. I don't know. I love this kind of question, but yeah, for you, what's been like just the most amazing moment or memorable thing for Primally Pure?
That's hard because there's been different ones for different stages of the business.
Yeah.
Hard to pick one. Okay, I'll give you just a few.
Okay. I love it.
So I remember when I moved the business out of my house, this was like within a few weeks of my first daughter being born. I wasn't sure whether to excuse me, whether to shut the company down and take like a maternity leave, or whether to hire someone full time, move the business out of my home and kind of keep things running while I was on maternity leave. And so financially, it was kind of shaky to take that route, but that's what we ended up doing. I hired my first full-time employee. I moved the business out of my house, and it all kind of came together within like, on my daughter's due date, it all kind of like really came together in terms of like got everything moved in, had my person trained and all of that. And then thankfully my daughter was 2 weeks late. So I got to like enjoy a little bit of a breather before she was born. But that was so cool because I was like, oh my gosh, this is no longer, a business that I'm running out of my home. We have an actual location, we have an office, we have a manufacturing space that isn't my kitchen. And it was just like, man, this is really cool. And then I would say also when we opened our spa, which was in not that original location, but the second location, which is our current one. We opened a spa, and just like getting a facial from our holistic esthetician, Courtney, in the spa that was at our new headquarters for the first time was super, super cool.
That's awesome.
And then, yeah, it was cool. And she's like such a gifted facialist. It's not like a normal facial where they slap products on you and give you a mask and have you sit there for a half an hour and rinse it off and call it a day. Like, she does amazing, like, lymphatic massage and gua sha and different techniques like that. So it was just kind of a relaxing, surreal experience that all of that, the spa, the shipping, the manufacturing, that was all happening at the same place. It started out from just this little like hobby that I had several years prior. And then also, this isn't really a moment, but kind of just something that was also really cool was, I think I'd mentioned like this maternity leave, or maybe I was talking to someone else about this. I can't remember, but I just got back from maternity leave with baby number 3 and felt like this maternity leave was just such an amazing contrast to my first maternity leave in terms of really being able to be hands off with the business and just to watch it continue to grow, even as I was, really not doing anything with the business for a couple of months. That was pretty awesome just to see like the amazing team that's in place, kind of like growing the business without me. Yeah, that was super cool.
That's so awesome. And I think that is something just to celebrate too, because I think so many people that have businesses, like, they probably are afraid to take time off, and, they feel like their business won't run if they're not like micromanaging everything. So I think it's really cool that you can contrast that now to where you were. I think it maybe five or 6 years ago, you said, where, you had maternity leave, but maybe it wasn't as fun, or maybe fun isn't the right word.
No, it was like
hands off.
Getting up at 2 a.m. to breastfeed my daughter and remembering like all these things that I had to do and jumping on my laptop for 3 hours and then maybe squeezing in another hour of sleep at some point. It was like,
oh my God,
so chaotic.
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, one more question, and then I promise we can wrap it up. What do you feel like? Because I'm a marketing person, so I really love brands that have good marketing. And I mentioned this like 6 times since we've been talking. So I'm like, you guys have the best marketing. What do you think has been, in terms of marketing efforts, like what do you think has been the biggest driver to your business success, just from a marketing standpoint? And maybe like without paid ads, is there one other thing that you've done that has been like, that's really, really helped us grow?
Yeah, I would say our affiliate program. That was something that I started really early on, and it just kind of springboarded our success. And I know that a lot has changed since then in terms of how influencers work and how they market products. But we still have an affiliate program that's thriving, and there are still a lot of people that like to work that way. And by that way, I mean like traditional affiliate marketing where influencers will share a link or a code and then get a commission based on every sale they refer. So that was something that I believe I started maybe 6 months to a year into starting the business, and was really successful from the get-go, drove a ton of sales. And, that's not the only way we work with influencers now. We do some paid posts, like flat rate stuff, but we also still have a large, thriving group of influencers who are in our affiliate program, and it's still a big part of our business.
I love that. I'm a huge fan of affiliate marketing, so I appreciate that was your driver. I like that. Okay, cool. This was so awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and just so nice to chat with you. Can you tell everyone where they can find you, where they can buy your amazing products? And if there's a product in particular that you want to like recommend to people, feel free to go for that too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, our website is primallypure.com, PRIMALLY, pure.com. We have lots of great information on our blog. You can sign up for our newsletter on our website, where you can find out about product launches and promotions and just all the educational material that we send out regularly. Deodorant is probably what we are the best known for. Our charcoal deodorant is our best seller, but all of them are great. My favorite is tea tree. And gosh, if I had to pick like one product outside of deodorant that people should try, I would say, this is hard. It changes a lot, but probably our cleansing oil. Our cleansing oil is something that really transforms my skin. It's like a mini spa experience at night or in the morning whenever you decide to use it. So yeah, it's a good one.
Love that. Well, thank you so much, Bethany. So nice to have you on, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Carrie. You've been awesome.